Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Wrestling History. As always, we're your hosts, Jacob.
Yo.
Ryan. We get our plugs and crap out of the way first real quick, too?
Sure.
All right, plugs. Twitter, WrestleHistPod.
There you go. YouTube, search for This Week in Wrestling History podcast.
Facebook, also search for This Week in Wrestling History.
Spotify, Google Play Music, iTunes, we're on as This Week in Wrestling History.
And Gmail, WrestlingHistoryPodcast@gmail.com. All right.
That it? Did we miss anything?
Yeah,
No, that's
good
all
enough.
of it. That works. So this week we're going to talk about the draft.
Yep.
Or Shakeup, or whatever the hell you want to call it.
The original one was the draft, then it was the draft lottery, and then it became the Superstar Shakeup.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that because that just happened. And to help us talk about that, we have my good buddy Chuck.
Hello.
So you've been watching wrestling for how long, aside from the Dark Ages?
Now 3 years, but if you want to add it all together, it would be a total of like 8.
Okay.
Like an 03 to 08, 07.
And then nothing up
I have
until...
this big dark period where I have no clue what happened in wrestling.
You have like a decade gap in there. And
I know CM Punk,
That's the
and I
Dark
love
Ages.
him. Only from YouTube videos do I know anything that happened.
Oh, that's the saddest thing.
It's, yeah. And it's hard to go back because it was so bad if I watch any Raw episodes from like 08 to 2014.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad stuff in there, so.
Oh, yeah.
It's just bad, and then like a couple good episodes, which, you know what, the YouTube clips pretty much cover that, so.
I mean, that's the point of YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know how useful I am on a lot of these, but
Yeah, I think it'll add something here, so.
But you're enough of a smark where you can formulate decent opinions to generate a conversation.
2016, I went total nerd. So like current WWE stuff and like New Japan, I'm all over it.
All right, perfect. So yeah, we're gonna go over the WWE draft. So going back to 2002,
Yeah,
the first
that
time
was
it
the
happened?
first one. That was when Ric Flair was part owner.
Ric Flair was half owner of the company, and Vince was half owner of the company.
Yep, and they were kind of divvying up the shows to be like, all right, Ric's going to be in charge of Monday Night Raw, Vince is going to be in charge of SmackDown, which didn't really make sense to start off with, because why would the chairman give up his flagship show? Come on.
Yeah, that was kind of odd, but at the very least, I liked that reasoning behind there being two separate brands. So it made sense originally. Okay, we have two different warring co-owners, so let's split this thing up. That stopped making sense pretty quickly because shortly after the quote-unquote brand extension or whatever they wanted to call it, Vince got full control of the company back, yet we had two separate brands.
Yeah, and they acted like it was two different companies.
Right, which that whole part of the draft bugs me a lot because it doesn't make sense. It would make more sense to just, especially in this day and age, to come around and say, we have so much talent, we're just going to have two different rosters and two different shows. And then once a year, we're going to shake things up so you can have fresh content.
I mean, hence the Superstar Shakeup.
Well, right, but they still act like they're two competing brands, which made sense for a little while because they had stopped for how long? From like 11 to 16?
Yeah, something like that, where there was just everybody was on every show.
Right, and then Shane came back, and it was Shane versus Stephanie, so Vince split the product up again. Okay, that makes sense, but now the McMahons are all on the same page again, running the whole company. What's the illusion? What's the plot reason for having two separate shows?
So, aside from that, can we just talk about Sami Zayn being the hottest free agent in WWE, right, quote unquote, right now, and me losing my shit because I thought he was like released?
He'd probably get to do a little more if he was released. That would be kind of nice.
But
the phrasing, yeah. So that's part of my reason why I hate this right now, because he's not a free agent. He's still an employee of the WWE. It doesn't make sense to call him a free agent. He's not. He can just if they want someone to be like not wholly dedicated to a show, they need a better term, because especially right now with how volatile the whole industry is with AEW up and coming.
Labeling somebody as a free agent ain't the best idea.
You're suddenly just going to create rumors that your own guys are jumping ship more.
I mean, I sent you guys a message and I was like, holy shit. Oh, wait.
I think the whole thing kind of goes along with like, how many times are they going to try to get us to buy into this whole like WWF versus WCW thing that they're trying to recapture with the brand split? Like, are they just going to keep doing that every year at Survivor Series and like throughout the year do this whole free agent thing, make us try to...
Right, and like I was saying here, that's, again, part of the thing I hate is that stuff doesn't make sense because no one thinks these are actually two competing Cool, what are you competing over? And
it's nothing.
Right, they're competing over like who can put on the better show, like who has the better athletes. Cool, then just say it's an exhibition. You can just have two teams. It's not like it's essentially like having the Buffalo Bills offense versus the Buffalo Bills defense and telling me that there's a real hot free agent here between these two. No, like the cheerleaders are not the free agents between the offense and the defense.
Could you imagine going to the training camp and somebody talking about that?
No. No.
Like, okay, so I'm going to date myself with this reference, but it's like going to, I think it was on the Atlanta Falcons and then the Dallas Cowboys, Deion Sanders.
Yep.
So he played on both offense and defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, he's the hottest free agent on that team. Don't know what side he's going to be on.
Who knows what team he's going to play for?
Right.
Oh wait, he's going to play for the Cowboys.
Exactly. It's just dumb. Like wrestling is faux competition to begin with. We don't need a faux competition between the company in and of itself, between the guys working for the company. It's too many layers. It's asking a little bit too much. Let's just ignore that whole thing and just be honest with the fans and say, hey, we have two different shows. We have so much talent that we fill two shows. That's how good our company is.
And, I mean, I can kind of see it now where, especially with this Fox split.
Right.
Like, SmackDown is going to probably start being the place to go because, like, that... well, I mean... in the eyes of the wrestlers.
In the eyes of the fans, yeah, I think.
It's going to have to start being completely different, too, and not having all this crossover.
Yeah.
Because the networks aren't going to want people from another network's show, I think, on theirs.
Well, Fox has flat out said that they don't want any crossover at all. So what are you going to do with the women's tag belts?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Wow.
What are you going to do with Becky Two Belts? I mean,
she won't be Becky Two Belts.
Yeah,
that one's an easy fix.
Yeah, that'll solve itself. Yeah, the women's tag team belts would have to become exclusive to one show. And if they want to have them cross over with NXT, then it sounds like you'd probably have to put them on Raw.
Or, here's an idea. 2 sets of women's tag belts.
No. I don't think the division is that deep.
3 teams on each show.
I mean, at this point, you might as well.
Look at their normal tag divisions. Raw can't hold a division to save its life right now.
Yeah, but that's because Vince hates tag teams.
So you think the solution is to have more women's tag belts?
So add more.
Yes, absolutely add more.
Nailed it.
Vince will be dead soon. He won't be in the company that much longer.
Okay, but then his doofus son-in-law is going to take over.
His idiotic daughter. Anyway.
Right. So we start the draft under decent pretenses in 2002. We kind of do it, I guess, kind of like a sports draft where you are alternating your teams, except it's just 2 sides instead of like 20 some odd teams.
Well, and like back then too, in 2002, it was literally just Vince and Rick. You know what? I want this guy. You know what? I want this guy. Maybe we'll take this guy. It wasn't anything like where it gets later on. Like, for instance, like we've said before, we usually have something on playing in the background. We have the 2008 draft going. They used to, quote, randomize the picks, and one of the shows would get somebody randomly from SmackDown or ECW. It wasn't ever just, you know what? I want this guy.
Yeah, they definitely just made it seemingly more quote-unquote random, which I recall hearing rumors way back in the day that the superstars literally did not know going into Raw where they may end up, which that seems super shitty to do to people.
That was a rumor in 2016 for the first Shakeup, actually, or 17.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah, I think something like that.
There was
I think it was
rumors
16, yeah.
they didn't know where they were going to add
Right.
some realism, which I kind of like.
So from a viewer perspective, yes, that's kind of cool. So you get more authentic reactions. From a taking care of your talent standpoint, what a dick move.
Like their families.
It's like it's like your boss walks in. By the way, you're now working weekends and 4 p.m. to midnight. Have fun. Bye. You'd be like, wait, what?
Well, the other thing too is, kind of back then, you didn't have as many dirt sheets, kind of thing. So back then you probably could have gotten away with it if you had told somebody and been like, just don't tell anybody. Shh.
No, even back then, it was still pretty bad.
I can't imagine it was as bad as it is now.
You'd be wrong.
Well, okay.
Trust me, I was internet smart way back then.
Okay.
It's been like this since WCW existed. It's been about like this.
Well, since the internet's been around?
Yeah.
All right.
Since back in the AOL days.
So then my thing would be, aside from that, is that you also have issues with talent throwing hissy fits when they find out that they're breaking up a team and somebody's going to Raw and somebody's going to SmackDown. Sasha Banks.
Shots fired. So that leads me to one of my biggest problems with the very first draft we ever had here. So we're not gonna cover every single draft pick of every single draft. We'll kind of.
Did you watch the first one?
I actually just got interested and watched it like a month ago. So I was
Perfect.
Really glad
So
that you
it's
guys said that.
somewhat fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go over every single draft pick of every single draft. We're just going to kind of touch on a few key moments and some bigger picture stuff. But so in 2002, Ric Flair drafts is I think his second draft pick. The entire NWO, being Nash, Hall, and X-Pac, as a giant single unit to Raw. And then, like 3 picks later, Vince decides he's going to draft the strongest tag team the WWE has ever seen, the Dudley Boys, except he decides to do it one at a time. So he drafts Bubba to...
Flip it.
Flip it. Rick decides he's going to draft the strongest tag team. He drafts Bubba to Raw, and to show him up, Vince decides, all right, well, if you're going to draft Bubba, I'm going to draft Devon to SmackDown. Like, it doesn't... It's been 25 minutes, and they can't keep this thing logistically constant. What the hell? You get the NWO as a whole group, but the Dudleys, fuck it. Got to do them one at a time.
So
what?
Hang on. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been watching a lot longer than I have. Has consistency ever been important to WWF or WCW?
I mean, no, it really hasn't.
So you shouldn't be shocked then.
But it helps when you at least put months in between your inconsistencies. Or, okay, we're going to change this guy's name and just kind of forget. And then 7 to 8 years later, we're going to bring back Undertaker's brother, who apparently also has the same exact name as The Undertaker, because Undertaker's original name was Kane the Undertaker. Mm-hmm. Apparently their parents, not very imaginative. Then again, how much time would that save most parents if you have 2 kids and you just name both the same thing? We have to yell at someone.
George Foreman.
Yeah.
Yes, every one of his kids is named George. Just yell at George and someone's coming.
Yeah, at least one of them is going to show up.
Yeah. Anyways.
I want to point out, in that same draft, I believe the APA was broken up as well.
They were in the supplemental draft.
Yeah.
Then they break it again because Billy and Chuck, because they're the tag team champs, get pulled together.
Yeah.
Just there was
rules.
Right.
And stuff.
Just have some logical consistency for a show. If you want to change it later, fine. But for a single show, it just was like, wait, what? Huh? Why? But okay, sure, fine. Like, just give them some reason not to take the other one at the same time instead of. I mean, on the plus side, guess that got us Reverend Devon.
And little Dave, no, that was before little Dave Batista.
Yes.
Deacon Batista.
Freaking Deacon.
with his chains.
Yeah.
Or chain? Singular?
Yeah. So this is horrible of me, but I never really got to watch SmackDown much back when it was first on because I believe it was on UPN to start, and we didn't get UPN in Rochester at the time.
Yeah, it was on UPN for a long time.
And then it went to CW or WB.
So then it was still on UPN, but WB was like showing stuff for UPN.
Oh, right. Well, no, I think the two channels merged. The two companies merged, and it was some weird conglomeration.
Channel 16 here.
Yep.
This was the WB, and then the CW, and 18 was UPN.
Okay,
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, we
which
eventually
one.
got UPN, but yeah, SmackDown bounced all over, and I think for some reason I worked evenings back at that point in time, and I think I had Mondays off so I could watch Raw.
It was always at a goofy time too. Like SmackDown was on Thursdays at like 8:30 or some random thing.
It wasn't for whatever reasons. I was never a SmackDown guy, so I never really saw any SmackDown.
See, I used to almost exclusively watch SmackDown.
Me too, because it was on Fridays for me as a kid.
Pretty
And
sure
I
you guys
wasn't
got the
allowed to
better
stay
end of
up.
that deal.
Yeah, I couldn't stay up on Mondays, so Fridays. That's why I have this connection with like Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle, and
Yeah, I missed out on all the good stuff with the SmackDown 6 and all those guys. Yeah, so. Anyways, Chuck, you have a list. You have some moments.
I did. So in order to prepare for this, I kind of just went through and watched a bunch of YouTube videos and a couple like episodes of drafts, and I decided that I was going to make a list of things that I thought were interesting.
All right, bust them out.
I don't think they're in any particular order, but I'll try to make them in order. You guys can react to them, and we'll go based off of that.
Sounds good.
Mind the people that are listening to us that we have not seen this list, so this should be fun.
Well, don't build it up too much. It might not be that great.
All of the hype now.
So it started 2002. What I noticed, I'm just going to read this word for word what I wrote down because I think that makes it better. So I have here written, and I don't really remember what I wrote, but 2002, weird leather jacket and chain-wearing female gym teacher haircut having Undertaker yelling at Vince. And parentheses, very poor acting.
Yeah. So we were in the middle of Biker Taker, a.k.a. Undertaker had left after the corporate ministry stuff to recover from various injuries.
Got fat.
Came back as the American Badass Undertaker, where he rode a motorcycle down and came out to Limp Bizkit. Yeah, and it was not a good look. And he was currently in the middle of a feud with Ric Flair. That would actually kind of be the reason for Vince getting the company back. But Flair drafted Undertaker to Raw, which really pissed off Undertaker for reasons unknown, because I guess he didn't want to work for Ric Flair. So, yeah, and then he chucked a chair like at the wall, and everyone's like, all right then, okay.
I also have written here for the same episode, Reverend Devon, so good job.
Yep.
Hey,
So,
yeah,
I'm
we hit
talking
that
about
one.
that already. He didn't pop up in that episode, obviously, but I think it was the next one. He was complaining to Vince, and Vince told him to get a new gimmick, and that's how we got that.
Well, like the funny part about that whole thing was, so Bubba gets drafted to Raw. We're at Raw, so Bubba's gonna be, in that same locker room. He's not going anywhere. It's not like he has to leave and go to a different town or something. He gets up and he walks out. Like he got up and stormed out of his own locker room.
he just needed a moment. He had to go for a walk and clear his head, and he's losing his brother. He'll never see his brother ever again.
Yeah, like those, 12 more tag titles didn't do anything for them?
Right. But I mean, we've seen that Bubba does maybe do his best work when he's separated from Devon, and he went on to do his best work in the WWF when he was... No, that's right. They did absolutely nothing with either of them except bring out Batista eventually for Devon. That was the only thing that came of their split.
Yeah, when Bubba was by himself in Impact, he was absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful.
Except for the bullshit with the aces and eights.
Right, so Bully Ray would go on.
I mean, even Bully Ray now, like in ROH, he's still doing decent stuff. He had a really good match with Flip Gordon at one point.
And he's in really good shape now. So
yeah,
He looks small.
So, all right. Way too much of a tangent there.
Yeah. So I wrote down here there's no year next to it because it applies to literally every draft until 2007.
Oh boy.
And I wrote cringing anytime something happens with Benoit and people get really excited about it.
Yep. Because they made a big deal in 2002 because he had been hurt and Kurt Angle talked Vince into drafting him to SmackDown.
It was like number 3.
Yeah, because he was coming back soon, so it was kind of a way to prep the crowd and just that's definitely in retrospect that hurts.
He was a big deal up until 2007.
Yeah.
I just didn't think he was that big of a deal in 2002 yet, and when I saw that I was just like, ooh.
No, he wasn't.
It just went on for a while, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to watch those go back because it's just he's really in your face.
Yeah, it's that one hoits.
So I have one to kind of spin off of that. From 2000 and I believe it was either 6 or 7 until they stopped in 2011, there was one wrestler who changed brands every single time. Can we take a wild guess?
I'm going to guess it was Jeff Hardy.
You said it's someone who switched
it couldn't have
brands
been.
every time from the start until 11?
From 2006 until 2011.
I don't know. Who was it?
Big Show.
Well, that is fitting for his character flip-flopping.
His thing.
He goes to a new show, he becomes a face. He goes back to Raw and he becomes a heel. He goes back to SmackDown and he's a face again.
And then he turns on SmackDown the next
And then
week.
he goes back to Raw. Like he was the only one that I noticed showed up every single time switching rosters.
Well, it's a smart move because whoever drafts him is going to win that year's Royal Rumble because how are you going to eliminate the Big Show? He's like 500, 600 pounds.
He's won every time.
You can't eliminate him.
Tell that to the other 12 guys that dump him over the rope every year.
No.
Oh, damn.
False.
All right.
Next on your list.
Next on my list, 2005. Kurt Angle versus Ric Flair. Woo off. Lemmy mustache Triple H then yelling about gimmick infringement with Lemmy's mustache. And before you get into that, I just want to tell you, I want to read to you part of Kurt Angle's promo on Triple H.
Oh, boy.
This was a really good segment, by the way. It ended up just Triple H and Kurt Angle because Kurt Angle was drafted to Raw. And it was Triple H and Ric Flair in the ring. And Kurt comes down and he's talking. And Shawn Michaels ended up coming out, too. And they set up their match for Vengeance. That was right before the Batista Triple H Hell in a Cell.
So was this the year that Triple H got drafted to SmackDown and then got traded back to Raw?
2005?
Yep, that's it.
Was it?
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second after this then.
Eventually, Batista, I know, won the match against Triple H and went to SmackDown. But I want to read to you one thing Kurt Angle said. This is before HBK and Batista came out. I did some research and found out that this draft episode was on the same day as Michael Jackson got acquitted of the charges of child molestation.
Oh, no.
And Kurt Angle had a line where he said, "What happened to Michael Jackson today is nothing compared to what I got away with when I was making out with your wife."
Oh, shit.
Oh.
And then Triple H said something about Sharmell beating him up, and Kurt Angle was like, "Actually, I kind of liked that."
Well, I mean, maybe this explains where what's his wrestler guy that neck busted now? Fake son.
Oh, Jason Jordan.
Jason Jordan.
That was a thing that has apparently plagued Kurt Angle for a very long time, that he has a certain taste, and apparently this started that kind of backstage rib on him.
Do you remember the promo that he cut about Sharmell when he was on SmackDown?
No.
He's what's the rating of this show?
You can swear, but don't be racist. That's the rating.
Well, Kurt Angle said something kind of racist. He said he wanted to have like raw bestiality sex with Sharmell. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do remember that one.
Oh,
that was right. That was right before he got drafted to ECW, and then his career went downhill because of the painkillers.
well, then he went to TNA, and ugh.
I can't take credit for this, but I saw the nickname Perk Angle.
Oh.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so going back to something that we touched on there real quick. When Triple H was drafted...
I apologize, that was the 2004 draft.
Still, this is a good time to cover this, because we discussed it a little bit earlier today, and I have a pretty good rant. So do you want to explain what happened exactly?
Yeah. So in the 2004 draft, the fifth pick, the fifth overall pick was Triple H being drafted to Raw to SmackDown from Raw away from Evolution. And in the backstage, Triple H does a spit take, and Batista and Flair are like, "Oh my God, you're going to SmackDown! It's the end of your career," kind of thing. After the show ends on WWE.com, they do a post-draft trade where Booker T, Bubba Ray, and Devon, Rico, and Miss Jackie are sent from Raw to SmackDown for A-Train, Chuck Palumbo, and Triple H.
What the fuck?
So let me read that again. Booker T, the Dudleys, Miss Jackie, and Rico. Let that last one sink in.
Got to get Rico. That's your money player.
For A-Train, Chuck Palumbo, and Triple H.
This is like the weirdest game of SmackDown or Raw vs. SmackDown GM mode ever, where you're trying to get in under some sort of weird salary cap.
Yeah. Like, shit, Triple H put me over. We got to get him out of here.
So, this is what I want to talk about. And they did it again. So, this was bad enough that they did it after the show went off air to undo something and bring someone back. So, in 2008, was it, with Cena?
Yes.
So, in 2008, to open the show, they have Cena being drafted from Raw to SmackDown, and then the very last pick of the show is John Cena going back from SmackDown back to Raw on the same show. There's this literary / creative fiction mechanism known as Chekhov's gun, and it basically says, if you take the time to do something in your creative work and like really make a point of showing an item, in the example's case, if you have a gun in the first act of something, you better use that gun in the third act, or you're going to piss off your audience because you took their time and mental energy to go, oh, hey, look, this important thing. You don't point out something to just not use it. Wrestling does it a lot during a match. If you see someone set up a table, but then they go away from the table, it's like, oh, that table's probably going to end up getting used in the finish because, well, we don't just set up a table and forget about it.
Well, yeah, when was the last time that happened? Somebody set up a table, then nobody went through the table.
Exactly.
Didn't it just happen in the women's match at the main event?
They tried to. They used
when
the table.
When Ronda was like, tables are for bitches.
Well, they tried to use it. They just didn't go through it.
I am the table.
Good times.
But it's really dumb and insulting to the fans that, okay, and this is one of the biggest criticisms of WWE storytelling, is they write for moments instead of the overall plot. Because, ooh, big moment. Cena went to SmackDown. It's John Cena. He's huge. And then at the end, John Cena's back. Okay. Why did we even do that? We went nowhere. We literally just went 360, went in a complete circle, and there was no point to the whole damn thing.
And I'm pretty sure that that whole thing, Cena was the first or second pick. It was very early that they teased him going to SmackDown.
Right. And so what if you're a casual fan back in 2004, 2005, and you see Triple H get drafted to SmackDown? Oh, wow, that's awesome. I'm going to definitely tune into SmackDown this week and see what's going on with Triple H because he's my favorite guy. Maybe you don't actually follow WWE.com back then, and you go to tune into SmackDown and no Triple H. Like, what the hell was the point of that? It's just really dumb doing these things where you build something up and then literally don't have a payoff for it.
Yeah, they did that quite a bit with some of this. And kind of the next one that I want to talk about is the 2006 draft.
All right.
2006, they set it up as this. It's another draft People are going to switch brands. It's going to be crazy. There's 2 picks in the entire draft. And it's for ECW when ECW comes back. That they get the brand extension draft.
Mm-hmm.
The only 2 people to go anywhere are Rob Van Dam to ECW from Raw.
Obviously.
And Kurt Angle from SmackDown.
I remember that being a real big deal. Like, oh my God, it's Kurt Angle. Basically, they were super desperate to create some sort of buzz around ECW coming back because they didn't think that was the first sign that that WWE ECW was doomed. Because
I don't think ECW is going to work. We need some buzz.
Exactly. They're like, this ain't going to go anywhere. Let's get Kurt over there so there's at least some name recognition. They didn't believe in the concept from day one.
Yeah, and there's a little documentary on WWE Network where it's like Untold. They've been doing a series for it, and one of them is the ECW Revival, they call it.
I think I watched that.
Paul Heyman, Big Show, Kurt Angle, Tommy Dreamer, and Shane McMahon were all from the very beginning were like, nope, it's not going to work. But they went ahead with it anyway.
Yeah, it was against everyone's best thoughts. I think Shane had come up with like a decent pitch to Heyman where he's like, okay, I think I can give this a whirl because we're not going to try to remake old ECW. We're going to try to do an ECW for today, but it just never panned out. But all right, let's go back to the list here.
I'm going to keep moving it in chronological order. I have here for 2010, heel, and I quote, Michael Cole.
Yeah, back when we had doing the Raw anonymous Raw GM. Okay.
Yeah, and he had the segment where he was telling Babyface Edge that he got traded to SmackDown. That was weird to see in 2010.
So I believe 2010 isn't that the year Edge had to retire? Or 2011?
2011.
Right, so shortly there around. So explains why he's face Edge instead of heel Edge, because heel Edge was around for a long time, and he wasn't face for too terribly long before retiring.
No, he was not.
Yeah, that was during the whole anonymous Raw GM days where the GM was, as we would eventually come to find out, Hornswoggle underneath the ring. But it was a laptop, and Michael Cole was doing his heel announcer gimmick, which was awful. You can do a heel announcer. Michael Cole can't do a heel announcer, apparently.
No, he cannot. That was... You picked a very good time to not watch wrestling because of that.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I saw this segment, and I don't know anything about the whole anonymous GM thing. I did know that it ended up being Hornswoggle, which is horrible. But I was watching it, and he one thing I did like that he said was Edge said something about him being like a suck up or something to the GM, and he said something about, I think he said, all my coal miners don't appreciate hearing that.
Yep, that's what he called his fans, the coal miners.
I really like it.
And this ended up growing into
the coal mine.
And him having a match at Mania against Jerry Lawler.
Yep.
And Michael Cole showed up in a singlet with headgear on and had his plexiglass box around his announcer seat.
Yeah, so that was what the coal mine was because, yeah, it ended up being a feud between Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole as announcers. Cole ended up with the coal mine, which was his own little plexiglass and announce booth to keep him safe from Jerry Lawler beating the crap out of him at any given time. And yeah, culminated in a Mania match where Michael Cole had Jack Swagger in his corner. And I'm pretty sure Cole actually won that.
He did.
And then I think the next night on Raw, they had a rematch, and Jerry beat the absolute piss out of him.
Yep.
And, like, beat the character out of Michael Cole. Yeah. As in, okay, we're done with heel announcer Michael Cole. I'm sorry.
Because then quite literally the next week on Raw, Cole was normal.
Yeah. They just... I will say, the payoff is almost worth it if you beat the attitude out of someone. Of all ways to switch someone from a heel back to a face, that's a pretty decent way. It's just, all right, that's enough of that, and I'm over myself.
Yep.
All right. Moving on.
Didn't he demand after that everybody called him the voice of WWE, though? Is that a thing they were doing for a while?
It was probably during that whole time.
It was at the same time, if not very shortly after.
So I right after that, I was watching 2011 draft, and something annoyed me. That was
2011 is the one where Cena went first and then last.
Oh, 2011 was...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so earlier in that show, they had Randy Orton was out there cutting a promo, and he was interrupted by Drew McIntyre, actually.
Babyface Drew.
Who... No, he was a heel because he came out and the crowd was booing him.
Babyface because he doesn't have a beard.
Oh.
Young, fresh, innocent looking.
He was fresh-faced. He had a little stubble, but
I forgot
he was being booed.
A wrestling podcast.
Wow. In the middle of the show. Well done. That's got to be a record.
Yeah, he was getting booed by the marks. And he made a funny comment. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that I bought tickets to watch you tonight." To the crowd, and they booed him more. That was pretty good.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. But he came down, he interrupted Randy Orton, and he was promptly completely buried.
Well, yeah, because I'm pretty sure shortly thereafter it was the 3-man band.
Yeah, about to say.
Yeah,
you got 3-man band for a year or two, and then here your walking papers, have a good day, goes to the Indies, makes himself over, and becomes the Scottish psychopath, and comes back and everyone's like, "Ooh, okay, now we have something."
I mean, they could have built him, but it doesn't seem like they did.
He even flat out said in an interview that he was just too young and didn't know how to deal with, because I mean during that time he was like 22.
Yeah, it's sometimes the best thing for someone is being let go from WWE so you can kind of go find your way and learn the business a little bit outside and come back better.
Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's a question, complete side note. Is Jinder Mahal about to be 3-man band again? Like, what has he done since he lost the U.S. title on Raw like a year ago?
I mean, he should probably be... Jinder's not absolute rubbish, but you can't... You almost wasted him with that title run, with that world title run, because it was so bad and everyone just was so against it that I don't know if there's any coming back from just... There's no real good place for him, because how do you just not do something insanely racist with him as a heel because you're the WWE and don't know how to not do that?
Right, like he would still be a good fit on SmackDown, because what other monster heels does SmackDown have right now?
Right, he's a big guy. Honestly, almost
Lars.
sent him...
Yeah.
Almost sent him down to NXT just to kind of figure out something.
I mean, that wouldn't be bad. Have him run down and just beat the ever-loving piss out of Johnny Gargano.
No. No, please do not do that.
You want to put some heat on the guy? You want to make him a heel?
No.
You have him beat up the babyface.
You could
Just
make him look like
retire.
a monster. He could probably learn something down there.
He's going to look like a monster next to Johnny, because he's like a whole foot taller than Johnny.
Okay, new idea. Let's not sacrifice Johnny. Put him on 205.
Yeah, because that guy can pass for 205 pounds.
Fuck it. Make him do it anyways.
You see those steroids that he's been doing? Absolutely not.
Be fine. It's fine.
I mean, Goldust was on there for a little bit, wasn't he?
It's fine. All right. Next.
Can I go back to the racist thing real quick? It made me think of something from the Shakeup on Monday this week. How about them trying to get Andrade over as a heel by having him speak Spanish? Did you see that? Did you catch that segment?
Oh, yeah, because that's the only way they know how to do things with heels who don't have... Like, Zelina's a good mouthpiece. Like, she's decent on the mic, especially when it's short things for him, because he can put up in the ring.
So, let me make a weird tangent here. Jacob, I know you were at the same SmackDown in Rochester that I went to.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, did you go to SmackDown by any chance when I came here?
Nope.
Okay. So, SmackDown came to Rochester 2 years ago, I want to say now. Yeah.
Yeah.
2017. And it was really interesting being live at the show, because you kind of learned some secrets, because this was, again, back when Jinder was champ. Right before Jinder's segment where Jinder came out, when they had gone to a commercial break in the arena, they played a trailer for the U.S. Army. So they rallied a bunch of patriotism.
No.
And then Jinder came out, and that's why there's a bunch of USA chants whenever Jinder came out.
You got to be kidding me.
Oh, they
Absolutely.
staged that.
He's Indian.
Right, but it doesn't matter.
He's not
He's
from
not
here.
American. They're rallied that jingoism up real well, circled the wagons, and made everyone nice and patriotic. We'll put on the army thing. We'll get everyone full of national pride, defend the country.
Like, it wasn't
and then
even,
here comes the foreigner running down the country.
It
And
wasn't even a thing about tribute to the troops or anything like that. It was legitimately...
it was a recruitment ad.
It was a recruitment ad. They did the thing where they showed a couple of guys next to the ring before TV came back, and then all of a sudden TV comes back, and Jinder's music hits. People fucking lost it.
Yeah, everyone lost their shit because,
He has a turban.
well, he's not American. Oh, we don't like that because now we're feeling all America's the best, and here comes this guy. Yeah.
So, hey, well, hang on. Does that say more for where we live or for the WWE fans? Well, it's probably both.
It does
It's
not speak.
both.
It don't speak well of a lot of things,
But also
That's
where
for
we
sure.
live. Also where we
mean-
live. How long until Vince starts putting up like CNN news coverage of like 9/11 for like 10 minutes, and then has
I
like
wouldn't be surprised.
No.
has like Rusev come
Remember
out?
that was TNA with Daivari, so Sean Daivari, the guy that used to come out with
Muhammad Hassan.
Muhammad Hassan,
Oh, yeah.
who had the terrorist gimmick, sadly. Daivari, when he was in TNA, his music had an airplane sound. It
It literally started with a jet flying over, and then him coming out with his turban on and a full like camouflage military vest and camo pants.
No words.
Yep. Moving on.
Good Lord. So that Drew McIntyre segment, which we were just at, immediately after he got buried, Alex Riley came out to say something to Randy Orton. They made it seem like the segment was going to be over, but Alex Riley came out.
Is that when Cena killed him?
This was later on in the night. I guess he
Oh,
was out
okay.
there twice. But he immediately got RKO'd as well.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Randy
then
Randy
Del-
was.
yeah.
This was probably definitely around prime douchebag era Randy Orton.
everybody always says that John Cena is the golden shovel that buries everybody. It
Orton
was
too.
Randy for a while.
and Triple H.
Yeah.
But then Del Rio came out and cut some kind of promo. One thing I'm really thankful watching all these old drafts is that now they still do it with Survivor Series, which is annoying, but I get it, I guess, if there's going to be a brawl. But all the people wearing like the SmackDown and Raw t-shirts
So you can tell who's who.
so that you know who's on what show. I'm really glad they don't do that during the shakeups anymore.
Well, especially back in this era where you had so many cookie cutter guys where from a distance it was really difficult to tell apart like Orton, Riley,
The best
Drew.
the best ones is you put John Cena, Drew McIntyre, Alex Riley, and The Miz at that point. You put the
Oh,
four
yeah.
of them in the ring and turn them around so that you're staring at the backs of their heads. You have no idea who the fuck is who.
Yeah, I want to point out for anybody listening, over off to the side, we have the 2008 draft just playing on mute. And so far, they've showed about 5 different, 30-year-old white guys, and I have no idea who they are. And even if I saw their names, I wouldn't be able to tell you 5 minutes from now.
That was the prime era of the generic white guy with a certain build.
Yep. There was something else that I was
And then there was CM Punk.
Beautiful, man.
kind of changed. Started the change.
Is
Yeah.
that the night he cashed in, by the
No.
way?
No, he cashes in on SmackDown this week. So in 2008, they're doing the draft. CM Punk has the Money in the Bank. The World Heavyweight Champ gets drafted to Raw. I don't remember who it is at this point.
Edge.
Okay. So Edge gets drafted to Raw. He shows up on SmackDown to talk about what's going on. And then CM Punk comes out and cashes in after somebody beats him up. I'm pretty sure Batista beats him up.
Yeah, it's Batista. I thought that happened on Raw. I don't know.
All
Either
right.
way, good moment.
One of those two.
Great moment.
Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. So they do the things with the T-shirts. Do you remember when they used to have, hence 2008, and the guy standing in the ring as the ref, where the refs had different shirts?
Oh, yeah. They had the different branded. They had very different T-shirts. Like the SmackDown guys had blue shirts.
ECW had black with white pinstripes.
Yep.
And Raw was, I'm pretty sure, just the regular.
Black and white, solid,
Yeah.
chunky stripes.
Awful.
And, thinking of
Awful.
those blue shirts, there's that one ref. I think he's still on SmackDown, the blonde guy. He's
Lil
like,
Nate?
that's the mascot for the blue ref shirt.
Chad Patton.
No, Lil Nate.
Yes.
He
What's
does
his,
look
what's
like
his
Ric Flair.
real name? Isn't he one of the Armstrong brothers?
No. Crap. Who's Lil Nate? Forget Lil Nate. Charles Robinson.
Yes,
That's
that's
it.
who it is.
Charles Robinson.
He
Took
used to
me
be
a second.
WCW.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, a ref?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Guy's been around for a while.
that's pretty great.
Oh, it's so weird seeing Hawkins and Ryder in 2008.
That's weird.
Oh, and those are your new Raw Tag Team champs right there. All right, moving back to the list.
I mean, at least Zach wasn't tanned out of his mind here.
Soon. I don't have anything relevant that I saw from 2011 to 2017.
Because 2011 was the last
again,
one.
that was the end of the draft.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did away with the brand split.
Well, that would be why I couldn't find it.
There you go.
Yep.
2016 was cool because that was when SmackDown drafted Dean Ambrose, and you got the fun little angle at the whatever pay-per-view came right after that, where they're the
that's
triple
right.
threat, the Shield triple threat.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. And then that was also the big deal because, the title went to SmackDown because there was only one title back then.
And then they ruined what they could have done.
And then there was the red belt,
The jinxed belt.
the cursed belt. All right.
Maybe they'll fix it. But yeah, that was cool. I have written down here for 2017. I'm going to have you guess who this was going to SmackDown. The greatest female superstar of all time went to SmackDown in the 2017 Shakeup.
Becky.
Well,
No,
I'm gonna.
no.
Did they say it's the greatest one, or
I'm saying that.
you're saying it's the greatest one?
If
And
you say it's Charlotte, I will smack you from across
if
the
it's Charlotte,
table.
this table's getting flipped. And you're about to have a problem.
Charlotte was the third pick, but that's not who I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm actually talking about Tamina.
Ooh.
She was hurt, and she finally came back in 2017 and was drafted to SmackDown.
It feels like Tamina's coming back from being hurt like every month.
Well, they
for the last 12 years.
back
Yes.
in 2017, that was when she had those inverted knees.
Ugh. You don't want that.
Knock
Yeah.
knees.
Yeah, they
Fun times.
looked awful. Looked like Big Show back in the day before he lost all the weight.
Ugh. Yeah. So Tamina has been a lot of injury proneness, and then she also had kids at some point, so that
Yeah.
kept her out a while. But all right.
2017 also started a run where 3 years in a row, and I'm guessing it's just going to happen every year now, the IC and US titles
Flip
do
flop.
some kind of switcheroo. It didn't really happen last year because Jeff Hardy ended up winning the title on Raw,
Right.
And then got sent to
Yeah.
SmackDown. Yeah,
but
I
they
remember
had
that.
originally sent the IC title to Raw.
Yeah, you're not
or
wrong. Where
something.
in recent history, they always kind of do the pseudo flip flop of the mid level belt.
Well, they can't flip the main belts because one of them's fucking
It's
red.
the only one they can do now. Yeah.
Shit, this one's tied to this brand a little tough.
Didn't think about that one in advance, I guess.
All right.
But for 18, I also have written down some cool things we saw. We saw Drew McIntyre come back to the main
Yes.
roster
Yep.
And that's
with Dolph, which was kind of an interesting
And that's when
combo.
he came back
Yeah.
and had the evil music instead of the regular heavy music.
Did they add to it?
Yeah, they changed
From
it from
NXT
when he
to the
was in
main
NXT. Yep. So, the drums that he starts off with, that wasn't a thing in NXT.
Well, you learn something new every day, don't you? The greatest faction in SmackDown Live history was called up on that episode too. You know who that was?
Well, I can see your notes here now, so I'm just cheating. But
Sanity.
well,
They're in the news.
so they literally lasted a year on the main roster, did absolutely nothing
Exactly.
in that main year on the or on that 1 year on the main roster, and now they're done.
We also got the greatest superstar of all time, Big Cass,
Shut your mouth.
who definitely made the most of his opportunity and didn't at all get drunk on a bus and break a door that he. What did he
Yeah,
shit? Shit in a bathroom on a bus.
No,
Yep, he went to the bathroom on the bus, got stuck, and then kicked the door open.
And broke the toilet, I think.
Yep.
And everyone had to deal with
Man,
it.
that's like the trifecta of great like riding partner right there.
Yep.
That's what you look for in a road trip, buddy.
And what's even worse is that they were overseas for that one too. So
Yeah, it was like Germany or something.
Yeah,
They're just riding around.
awful.
No one can use the bathroom.
All right, so
So that leads us to this year.
yeah,
What do we think about this year's Shakeup?
not very shaking, but fine.
I mean, I would say
Swapped our mid-level belts with one of them not even being done on camera.
well, I would say one of the, I shouldn't say one of the, but the three biggest names, Roman and AJ flipping,
Yep.
to me makes a lot of sense for Roman to go to SmackDown because he's finally going to get a little bit more of a character story instead of just go out and punch things.
Yeah, I think that was a good idea for a couple different reasons. First off, it gets him and Seth separated, so there's no weird tension between, oh, hey, we just made up, we're buddies again, and oh, now I'm back and I kind of want your belt. We get away from that, so Seth can kind of breathe on his own. We can kind of help redeem the Universal Belt a bit now at this point.
We can only have Seth versus Roman so many times.
Right. And it gets Roman, as you said, off to kind of breathe on his own a little bit. Let him recover from that whole 2017 to 2018, essentially, where the fans were totally against him. He has some goodwill now from the fans. Let's ride with that. We have Kofi kind of tying up the championship right now, so we can keep Roman out of the championship picture until the fans are ready to kind of accept him. So I think it's a good place for him. I think it'll do well.
Yeah, and I think AJ moving to Raw brings Raw's work rate up to a whole new level.
I mean, they put a lot of the work rate guys back over on Raw to kind of rehab it a bit. The Usos went over to Raw, so it kind of helped rehab their floundering tag team division.
On Andrade, I mean, the matches with AJ and Andrade are gold.
Andrade, Ricochet, and Black are all over.
Yeah.
I meant Alucard Black and Rick Flippy-Doo.
Yeah, we changed their names because these ones are better.
Is that what Vince is going to change them to soon?
Well, much like the Viking Experience, we've improved their names.
The greatest tag team name of all time, the Viking Experience.
So, come to find out, their name was supposed to be, when they got called up, the Berserkers.
I saw that today.
So much better. Why did you settle on the Viking Experience?
I just realized why.
Clerks?
Nope. If you Google WWE or WWF and Berserker, you're going to get the awful character from the early 90s that went around going, Huss.
Oh, that's
Huss.
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted that turning up when you Google them.
Fair point.
They burned that name. It's done for them. So
Well, we also figured, much like Mustafa Ali is now just Ali, Aleister Black will soon just be Aleister.
You know, if he was going to be a heel, it would still be Mustafa Ali.
Of course it
That's
would be.
what's really upsetting.
but thankfully, Mustafa Ali won't do that angle, which is so good.
Yeah,
that is
no,
nice.
He
I'll
won't
just
do
say
that.
no.
I'm sure that guy could become a heel on his own accord, but he's going to do it the right way and not the, hey, look at me, I'm the evil foreigner.
Yeah. His match with Finn Balor on the Shakeup,
Great.
it was fantastic.
I think Finn and Andrade was better,
Well, yeah.
but I think Andrade is a better performer than Ali, so I guess it makes sense.
I mean, Ali
But-
hasn't been wrestling nearly as long as Andrade.
That's
Yeah,
very,
Andrade has
very
a
true.
lot of time under his belt. So,
Yeah. Still awesome.
yeah, so they definitely brought a lot of the more internet popular workers over, I guess is the best thing I can call it.
Yeah, but you still have guys like on SmackDown, you still have Daniel Bryan,
Yeah, you still got DB, you got Kofi, you
Yep. Kevin Owens,
got KO, Big O.
Big O. Who else? Finn now on SmackDown. You still have a work rate on SmackDown.
You have Roman. Roman is a good worker. People were so hesitant to give him any credit over in like 2017, 2018, but any wrestler was quick to say, this guy's a great worker. So
We're also overlooking who's quickly becoming my favorite wrestler, who is Buddy Murphy,
yeah,
who's going to be on
a couple of the
SmackDown.
cruiserweights got called up and they were good moves.
Cedric Alexander to Raw.
Yep.
Yeah, Murphy's really good, and he does not look 205 pounds.
Yeah, they're not going to make the same mistake as they made with Pac or Neville. Just keeping him on 205 Live until he gets so pissed off that he leaves.
Yeah.
Right.
They're going to take these guys who look like they can take bigger competition and actually put them in position like they did with Ali. And
Look at guys like Finn.
So nice.
Yeah, I mean, Finn Balor and Daniel Bryan, for all intents and purposes, should be on 205 Live.
AJ
I mean,
probably
It would be
should.
awesome.
AJ just barely isn't. Isn't AJ like 213 we looked up?
I think he's like 220.
Still.
Yeah.
So easily could be if they wanted to.
Right.
But he transcends the division, so...
Yeah, and like you said, it would be dumb of them to keep a guy like Buddy Murphy on 205 because that guy, whoever he's been in the ring with on the pre-shows of whatever pay-per-view, he's done better than like the first 8 matches on every single pay-per-view.
Yeah, so... And that's actually a good thing, too, because if you look at New Japan... The light heavyweights are kind of the opening acts, and they do kind of graduate to the heavyweight division. So WWE kind of having the 205 guys opening things and kind of graduating them up, it's good to show that, hey, we've kind of changed our mind on this, and you can graduate to, quote-unquote, the main roster, and I hate to use those terms, but
Right.
you can graduate up to being on Raw or on SmackDown.
That's a way more believable babyface dynamic, too, I feel like. Little guy against big guy.
Right, and
It's easier to write for.
Easier to buy into as well.
Yeah, and eventually once the guy kind of shows that he can hold his own, then you can kind of stop making him, you're the default babyface because you're small. We can kind of proceed, oh, you're a bit of a dick too. Okay, cool. Now you're just a full-blown main card wrestler. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think that about does it for our draft episode.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. You got...
Anything you want to plug? You got plugs or anything?
You can follow my Twitter. It's Chuck Flan. Thank you. Do that.
All right. So follow him on Twitter, Chuck Flan. I'm guessing lots of recipes for desserts.
Flan.
No.
Nope.
Stop with your stupid puns. Turn this off. We're done.
All right. We're history.
Bye.